Hotep, how's everybody doing? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Wednesday, January 15th, 2020. Happy New Year to everybody. For those who I haven't talked to in the new year. Hope everybody's doing well today. So everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. All right. So it's been a very busy day for me. I got to bed this morning about 5 a.m. I was up late working on an article for African American History Month for the Smart Pages here in Detroit. The Detroit Smart Pages, which used to be the Detroit Black Pages, right? So let me share this broadcast here on my personal page, Michael Imhotep. So Beverly Smith owns the Smart Pages here in Detroit. It used to be the Detroit Black Pages. So she contacted me about maybe a week to 10 days ago, asked me if I could write an article for the February edition for African American History Month, right? So, you know, I do lectures dealing with the history of African American History Month, things like that. I just got off the phone. Actually got two separate calls today because people want me to do presentations in February here in the Detroit area. So, you know, I have a article that I wrote back in 2016 and I updated each year. And I went and I was working on it yesterday, worked it on it early this morning, got up this morning about 10 a.m. Actually, it's actually noon I got up. Okay, I was supposed to get up at 10 a.m. because I had a 12 noon deadline to submit it to her. I got up at noon. I was knocked out, right? So I worked on it. And I'm dealing with the history of African American History Month and Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, things like this, right? So I submitted to her. And what I did was I copied it and put it into a Microsoft Word document, right? And when I put it into a Microsoft Word document, I actually got to see how many pages it actually was, and it ended up being 8 pages. So I submitted it to her and I said, okay, look, I'm sorry, but this ended up being 8 pages. You can edit it if you have to. You can cut it down. She sent me a message back. She said 8 pages. She said, I only have 1 page available for your article, right? So I didn't know it. So I was just gone. I was in the zone. But so look out for that. Go to Smart Pages. I think the website is smartpages.com, and it's also a physical publication as well. So those in the Detroit area, check that out. And when it comes out, I'll talk about it on my show, the African History Network show. But I wanted to deal some with the 2020 theme for African American History Month, okay? DetroitSmartPages.com is the website. DetroitSmartPages.com is the website, okay? You can check that out. We'll post a link here, DetroitSmartPages.com, all right? So those African American owned publications, we have to support them. But I want to talk some about this year's theme for African American History Month, okay? Because there's an annual theme each year, contrary to popular belief. And, you know, I attend some African American History Month celebrations. I speak at some. And, you know, unfortunately, some of them, are like a lot of Dr. King Day celebrations that you're going to see here in a few days. And a lot of African American History Month celebrations, you know, they just recycle the same 15 to 20 sanitized Negroes every year. And this is why a lot of people don't want to go. All right. I know people spend a lot of time and effort, you know, I'm not knocking that, but there's an annual theme each year. Okay. So the Association for the Study of African American Life and History was co-founded by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, September 9th, 1915 in Chicago. Right. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he was an educator, brilliant man, first African-American. He was the second African-American graduate with a PhD from Harvard, first of African slave descent. He was born in 1875 in New Canton County, Virginia. He was born 10 10 years after slavery ended. He's born in 1875, born to two former slaves, right? But this brother's going to go on to get 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, a PhD. And he realizes that African Americans don't understand their history, African American children, because he's an educator. Okay, he taught in the high school. He goes to work at Howard University. He was a professor at Howard, and he was a dean at Howard University also, and other colleges as well he worked at. But he realizes that African Americans don't know their history. So he creates an organization dedicated to the scientific study and documentation of African American history, African American culture, things like this, but not just, and also to document the accomplishments and achievements of African Americans, but not just in this country, but on the continent of Africa and throughout the diaspora. All right. So he co-founds the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, September 9th, 1915, in Chicago. And he's going to create Negro History Week, which was first celebrated the second week in February 1926. Okay. And Negro History Week had a specific focus on African American children. All right. And he said that, so a lot of times the way we celebrate it is backwards. It was never designed to be the only time of the year that we study our history or celebrate our history. Okay. He said it didn't make sense to teach our children African American history 1 week out of the year. Okay. And then teach them white history the rest of the year. No, that 1 week out of the year, the second week of February, was designed to be a period of time that school children showed what they had been studying and learning all year round. And you're going to have in the community, you're going to have all different types of celebrations, different speakers, all different types of things like this, right? It's a celebration. But there's an annual theme each year for African American History Month. So it starts out second week of February, 1926. February was chosen because February contained the birth date of Abraham Lincoln, which is February 12th, and the assumed birth date of Frederick Douglass, which is February 14th, because Frederick Douglass was a former slave. Douglass didn't know exactly which year he was born. He's either 1817 or 1818. He didn't know his birth date. So he took the birth date of February 14th. And this was common. A lot of enslaved Africans didn't know the date they were born or exactly the year that they were born. And when you read Frederick Douglass' first autobiography, because he wrote 3 of them, Douglass talked about that. And he said that a lot of slaves put their time of birth around the type of crops that were being planted when they were born. So it was cherry planting time, cotton planting time, whatever it was, right? The narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. I just saw it here. I got 4 stacks of books because 1 stack fell down. Let me see. I just saw it. Okay, it's in one of these stacks here. Because I'm looking at I'm going through reading Dr. King's last book. Actually, that was so actually for the article I wrote, I was citing some of I referenced Malcolm X's Ballad of the Bullet, the one he gave April 3rd, 1964 in Cleveland, Ohio, because he gave it the next day, April 4th, 1964 in Detroit, Michigan. Let me see here. Okay, it's in one of these stacks here. I can't get to it. But there's an annual theme each year for African American History Month, okay? And a lot of people don't know this. And the theme is designed to make this monthly cultural celebration, to make it relevant, okay? To give it purpose. And it's a theme that you don't just celebrate throughout the month of February, but you celebrate it all year. It's an annual theme, okay? So the theme for 2020 is African Americans and the vote. African Americans and the vote. And we know 2020 is a pivotal year because it's an election year for president. Also, you have, I think it's at least 20 seats up in the U.S. Senate. So it's a pivotal year for the U.S. Senate as well, okay? And then we know all 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. That's up for re-election. You have governorships up, state representatives, state legislature. It's a pivotal year, okay? Also, African-American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customer service theAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have a current promotion: buy 1 month, get 2 months free. It's going on for a few more days. We have a few advertising slots left. And we've picked up a couple new advertisers as well. 3 new advertisers. So you'll hear about that also. But when we look at this year's theme, and this is at asalh.org, asalh.org. Asalh.org is the official website of Asalh Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Okay. And they post their annual theme there. So the year 2020, let me post it here, asalh.org. So the year 2020 marks the centennial of the 19th Amendment and the culmination of the women's suffrage movement. Okay, so the 19th Amendment gave basically white women the right to vote, okay, in 1920. The year 2020 also marks the sesquicentennial of the 15th Amendment, 1870, okay, and the right of, so it's 150 years since the 15th Amendment, and the right of Black men to the ballot after the Civil War. Civil War ends 1865. The theme speaks, therefore, to the ongoing struggle on the part of African American men and African American women for the right to vote. This theme has a rich and long history, which begins at the turn of the 19th century, so the beginning of the 1800s. In the era of the early republic, with the state's passage of laws that democratized the vote for white men while disfranchising free Black men. Thus, even before the Civil War, because you're going to have, when you read Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., here it is right here. When you read Before, my copy's a little beat up. This is the 6th edition. When you read Before the Mayflower, in like chapter 2, I think it's in chapter 2, he talks about how you had free African Americans who were voting in the colonies going into the late 1600s, going into the early 1700s. Last one was 1715. I can't remember whether that was Georgia or not, right? So with the 1619 project and with the 400th year anniversary of August 20, 1619 in Point Comfort, Virginia, which is actually near Hampton. It wasn't Jamestown, it was actually near Hampton, Virginia. Those 29 Africans coming in on the White Line slave ship. In 2019, a lot of people, well, some people learned that the whole way that slavery evolved and the whole way this system evolved in 13 British colonies, is different than what we had thought, is different than the way we thought it evolved. Because when those 29 Africans are coming in on the White Line slave ship or pirate ship, it's an English pirate ship, codified slave laws don't even exist in the 13 colonies. The first colony to have codified slave laws was Massachusetts in 1641, comes to Virginia in 1661. They're hitting the different colonies at different times. Many people are under the impression that slavery just existed in all the 13 colonies and it evolved at the same time. No, it didn't. The whole way this thing evolves is totally different than the way most of us think it happened. So, thus, even before the Civil War, Black men petitioned their legislatures and the U.S. Congress seeking to be recognized as voters. So Civil War starts 1861. Tensions between abolitionists and women suffragists, okay, those women fighting for the right to vote. Even includes African American women like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. So tensions between abolitionists and women suffragists first surfaced in the aftermath of the Civil War, while Black disfranchisement laws in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries undermined the guarantees in the 14th and 15th Amendments for the great majority of Southern African Americans until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Voting Rights Act of 1965 was critical. So unfortunately, we don't understand the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And we think it gave African Americans the right to vote. What it did was it removed the obstacles that were put in place by Southern segregationist laws. Because Southern segregationist laws, like the poll taxes and literacy tests, things like this, the law didn't state it was illegal for African Americans to vote. What they did was they put obstacles in the way of us voting. And then you have terrorism from the KKK, from bigots, things like this. You have that as well. You have that type of voter suppression, but then you have other voter suppression tactics also. You have the White Citizens Council created in 1954 as a result of Brown versus Board of Education, U.S. Supreme Court case. White Citizens Council starts out in Mississippi and it's going to spread all throughout the South. But the Voting Rights Act of 65 is extremely important. I encourage people to go to history.com. That's one place you can get information about the Voting Rights Act. History.com, official website of the History Channel, and search for the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Because the U.S. Supreme Court case of Shelby County versus Holder, 2013, weakened Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which dealt with the oversight, which dealt with pre-clearance. And this dealt with the pre-clearance stated that the states, basically Southern states, that had a history of putting obstacles in the way of African Americans to vote, those states, if they wanted to make any changes to they want to make any changes to the location of voting of the polls, the times that people could vote, the amount of days that you had to register to vote, the number of weekends for souls to the poll voting, where a lot of African Americans go register to vote after church, or if it's a state that has early voting, they go vote after church, things like this. The pre-clearance stated that if municipalities, if cities, counties wanted to make any changes to things like that, you had to get clearance from a federal judge. You had to get approval from a federal judge to be able to make those changes. Section 5, what Shelby County versus Holder did, that U.S. Supreme Court case, that weakened Section 5 so that they don't have to get clearance from a federal judge to make any of those changes. So therefore, right after that Supreme Court decision was handed down, you started having new states coming out with new voter ID laws, which are different types of voter suppression tactics. So when the 2016 presidential election took place, 14 new states had new voter ID laws, and there were 868 fewer places to vote in this country. Many of the polling places that were shut down were in African American and Hispanic communities. Today, there's 1,700 fewer polling places across the country. That's as a result of U.S. Supreme Court case Shelby County versus Holder. Okay, so a lot of people, so this played a big part in the 2016 election that depressed the African American turnout because of rapid voter suppression. And a lot of people still don't understand this to this day. TheNation.com had a good article from Ari Berman. This was a couple of days before the 2016 election, November 4th, 2016, because the election was November 8th, 2016. There are 868 fewer places to vote in 2016 because the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. There are 868 fewer places to vote in 2016 because the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. Okay, I'm gonna post this link here. And today there are about 1,700 fewer places to vote. So when we talk about 2020 is going to be a pivotal year. 2016, too many African Americans did not understand what was at stake, did not understand that the policies of President Barack Obama were at risk of being reversed. Trump got in office. Trump has reversed close to probably about 200 policies from the Obama administration, everything dealing with regulations, dealing with regulations that impact the quality of air. When we deal with the attack on the Affordable Health Care Act, right now, Trump's Department of Justice is in court right now trying to repeal the entire Affordable Health Care Act. The Affordable Health Care Act gave 3 million African Americans who are non-elderly health care, who did not already have health care. It created 1 million jobs. It allowed people to stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26, as opposed to coming off when they're 25, regardless of what insurance you have. It allowed them to do that. It also banned pre-existing conditions, whether you have the Affordable Health Care or not. It had a tremendous impact, so much so of an impact that there was a study from the New York Times, a survey from the New York Times, Morning Consult polling company in New York Times. And they found that about a third of Americans did not know that the Affordable Health Care Act and Obamacare were the same thing. It's actually 35%. Let's see, NewYorkTimes.com. 1/3 don't know Obamacare and Affordable Care Act are the same. February 7th, 2017. A sizable minority of Americans don't understand that Obamacare is just another name for the Affordable Care Act. This finding from a poll by Morning Consult, CONSULT, illustrates the extent of public confusion over a health law that Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress hope to repeal. In the survey, 35% of respondents said either they thought Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act were different policies. Okay, that was 17% of people who thought they were different policies, or they did not know if they were the same or different. That was 18%. This confusion was pronounced among people 18 to 29 years old and those who earn less than $50,000 a year, two groups that could be significantly affected by the repeal. The Attorney General William Barr, his Department of Justice, is in court right now to repeal the entire Affordable Health Care Act, take away health care from at least 20 million people. Okay, read this. 35% of Americans did not know that the Affordable Health Care Act and Obamacare were the same thing. Because see, when Trump was running 2016, he kept calling it Obamacare, Obamacare, Obamacare. So you had a lot of poor white Republicans in Kentucky, where Moscow Mitch McConnell is, in Alabama, Louisiana, all these other places. A lot of them have the Affordable Health Care Act, but they thought Obamacare was something else. So they said, yeah, go ahead, take it away. Then they found out they were the same thing. Then you started seeing all these massive protests all across the country, and all these people saying, don't take away my health care, don't take away my health care. All right. Now in Kentucky, what happened was some states called it something else. In Kentucky, it's called Kentucky Connect. It's the Affordable Health Care Act, but it's called Kentucky Connect. So a lot of people in Kentucky didn't know that they had it. So they say, take away Obamacare. Or even if they hear the Affordable Health Care Act, they say, go ahead and take it away. Then they find out, I have it and it's saving my life. Then all of a sudden, they started fighting to say, oh, don't take away my health care. So read that article read that survey from New York Times. But all this ties into history, law, politics. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, this is what politics is. All right, how's everybody doing? Let's see who we have here. We've got Craig, we've got Angela, Lisa, Carl. All right, everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Also, you can donate to the African History Network. And if you like, help support the research, help support us in what we do. We have Cash App now, $ the AHN show, $ the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show through PayPal as well. Okay. Or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African American business owners, post name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network and get you up and running today. We have a few slots left. If you are looking for wide shoes, I know some people, they can buy shoes at a regular store. Other people need a specialty shop. Hey, well, Simply Wide, the wide shoe outlet, has men and women's shoes up to 15 EE. Visit their website, simplywide.com, or visit their brick and mortar store in Marlow Heights, Maryland. So those in the DMV area, go to 4279 Branch Avenue, 4279 Branch Avenue. They have brands including Naturalizers, Soft Spots, Rose Homerson, Pro Pet, Walking Cradles, and Easy Street. Okay, this is the Simply Wide shoe outlet. Give them a call, 301-702-1401, 301-702-1401, or visit their website, simplywide.com, and let them know you found out about this from the African History Network as well. Everything that we use, we should sell. Everything we use, we should sell. You may be on a trip. You may have left your favorite pair of wide shoes back at home. You're looking for somewhere to go. Go to the wide shoe outlet. Visit simplywide.com. All right. How you doing, Rosemary? Rosemary in Michigan. Okay. Cynthia as well. How you doing, Cynthia, down in Missouri? All right. Your prosecutor in Missouri is kicking butt. I'm going to do I'm going to do a separate broadcast dealing with that. Prosecutor in Missouri is invoking the 1871. She's suing St. Louis, invoking the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which was an act during Reconstruction to attack the Ku Klux Klan, who was attacking African Americans, killing African Americans, lynching them, but they were also attacking white Republicans as well. This is something else that the Klan was doing that a lot of people don't know. They were attacking white Republicans. They were also attacking Jews also. Okay, so I'm going to do a separate presentation dealing with that. That is Prosecutor Kimberly Gardner in St. Louis. All right, so let's continue here, one thing at a time. All right. So when we look at, once again, when we look at this year's theme for African American History Month, African Americans and the Vote, African Americans and the Vote, the 2020 theme, and this is a theme all year as well. So tensions between abolitionists and women suffragists first surfaced in the aftermath of the Civil War, while Black disfranchisement laws in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries undermined the guarantees in the 14th Amendment of 1868 and the 15th Amendment of 1870 for the great majority of Southern African Americans until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The important contribution of African American suffragists occurred not only within the larger women's movement, but within the larger African American voting rights movement. The important contribution of African American suffragists occurred not only within the larger women's movement, but within the larger African American voting rights movement. Through voting rights campaigns and legal lawsuits from the turn of the 20th century to the mid-1960s, African Americans made their voices heard as to the importance of the vote. Indeed, the fight for African American voting rights continues in the courts today. We just saw, I posted an article in the last couple of days dealing with Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is, I'm going to pull this up. Wisconsin is trying to purge. You had a right-wing political group. They're trying to get 200,000 registered voters purged in Wisconsin. And see, a lot of this has to do with state laws. You have to watch different states, because what happens is in some states, anybody can challenge anybody else's right to vote. It is based upon the state. It's based upon state laws. In some states, what happens is, and I do a whole presentation called African American Resistance in the Era of Donald Trump, Voter Suppression, Reparations, and How Elections Have Consequences. And I talk about this in that presentation. What happens is in some states, I think North Carolina is one of those states. All someone has to do to challenge your right to vote is they get a postcard and send the postcard to your address. And if the postcard comes back like insufficient address or something like that, then they send a certified letter or something like that. Let me pull up this. Let me pull this up so I can get it exactly. They send a certified letter, and it may state that you have to report to the voting board of elections or something like that to verify that you're still alive. Or what have you. But if you don't follow the instructions, then they can have you removed from the voter rolls. Okay. So these are different tactics that are being used to remove African Americans and Hispanics from the voter rolls, but especially African Americans. Let me pull this up here because I had my new laptop that I had a year crashed on me, so I'm still trying to transfer files over that I salvaged. Some files are lost, but let me see here. I think I have this on one of the backup. I think I had that presentation on one of my backup external hard drives. I hope I do, because that was a lot of work, that presentation. Let me pull this up, see what I have here. But see, these are things that a lot of us don't know. So a lot of people who think voting doesn't matter, a lot of people think your vote doesn't count. The question you should ask yourself is, why do Republicans work so hard to suppress the African American vote if your vote doesn't matter? Why do Republicans work so hard to suppress the African American vote if your vote doesn't matter? They understand the importance, and they fear the power of the African American vote more than we understand the power of the vote. So politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Let me try to pull this up on the backup laptop here, because I want to bring this up. I think I have this presentation on the backup laptop. Let that load up. All right, but if we look at this article here, just for instance, January 14th, 2020, Wisconsin court blocks purging of more than 200,000 voters from rolls. Wisconsin court blocks purging of more than 200,000 voters from rolls. A Wisconsin State Court of Appeals on Tuesday, January 14th, 2020, put on hold a ruling requiring the urgent removal of more than 200,000 names from the state's voter rolls the latest twist in a closely watched legal fight playing out in the battleground state ahead of the 2020 election. The ruling comes after a lower court judge last month ordered the purging of roughly 234,000 people from voter rolls because they may have moved. They may have moved, not because they did move, but because they may have moved. And the day after the state's elections commission and several of its members were found in contempt of court for not complying with the removal order. The latest development represented a win for Democrats in a state that may help decide the 2020 election, and which in Wisconsin is a state that Donald Trump won by less than 23,000 votes in 2016. He won Wisconsin by less than 23,000 votes in 2016. Donald Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by 78,000 votes, and he won Michigan by 10,704 votes. Okay, so Republicans understand the importance of this. Many African Americans don't. Republicans fear the African American vote more than we value the vote. Now, and then if we look at state of Georgia, we look at what happened to Stacey Abrams. Okay, Stacey Abrams should have won that election. Okay, Governor Brian Kemp, Republican, purged voter roll. It was all types of shenanigans going on there. But one of the things they did was purge voters from the voter rolls. Let me see here. I'm trying to find this presentation and okay. I'm not able to find it. So I'm going to have to do some work, because I hope I didn't lose that presentation. All right, I have to go look at that. I have to go try to find that presentation, because that one was a lot of work too. All right, let's see here. I think Ohio is a state where you can challenge people's right to vote like that also. Let me see something here. Just a second, let me look at this. This is an article from thinkprogress.org. Judge orders Trump campaign to stop intimidating Ohio voters. Lawsuits are still pending in Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. This is from November 4th, 2016. All right, it's one of these articles. I have this information in it. It's sufficient. So in this article, one of the things they talk about is lawyers for the DNC, Democratic National Committee, asked the court to rule that Trump, Roger Stone, and the GOP are violating both the Voting Rights Act, the 1965, and the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act, and to issue an order restraining the voter intimidation through November 8th, 2016. They're invoking the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act there as well. All right, you can check this article out here. Let's post this link here. Check that out. Okay, see, a lot of people don't connect the dots on all of this. And then there was one from AtlantaBlackStar.com. This is from June 11th, 2017. Supreme Court ruling on Ohio voter purge will have long-range impact on Black votes. Supreme Court ruling on Ohio voter purge will have long-range impact on Black votes. June 11, 2017, the United States Supreme Court decision to review a challenge to Ohio's voters' roll purge policy brings the question of voter discrimination to the forefront again. In a case brought by Black trade unionist organization, the A. Philip Randolph Institute, the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, and Larry Harmon, who is an Ohio voter, Ohio's supplemental process is being challenged as a violation of the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 and the Help America Vote Act of 2002. Since the 2013 U.S. Supreme Court cases, Shelby County versus Holder that I just talked about, the gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which required Southern states with a history of discrimination to get Justice Department approval before changing their voting laws, a stream of new quote-unquote voting laws have been commonplace, be it voters' roll purges, restricting voter registration, or access to actual voting. The growing number of voter disenfranchisement cases speaks of a changing populace and the lengths some will go on to hold power. The lengths some will go on to hold power. This is deep. Okay. Let me see here. It goes on to say Ohio has purged hundreds of thousands of people from the voters' rolls simply because they have exercised their right not to vote in a few elections, said Frida Lawson, legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Ohio. Quote, this purge process violates the National Voter Registration Act. We are confident that the Supreme Court will uphold the correct decision from the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals and will ultimately ensure that eligible voters may not be stricken from the rolls, end quote. That case went to the U.S. Supreme Court. U.S. Supreme Court ruled, see, in Ohio, what happened was if you did not vote in 2 consecutive voting cycles, okay, say 2014 midterm elections, 2016 presidential elections. If you didn't vote in 2 consecutive voting cycles like that, you could be purged from the voter rolls. That was the law in Ohio. It was challenged by a white guy who was in the military, and he was stationed like out of state. Okay, and he didn't vote, and he got purged from the voter rolls. He challenged it. It went to the U.S. Supreme Court. This case just happened last 2 years. Well, this is 2020 now, so I think 2017, 2018, that case happened. U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Ohio could purge them from the voter rolls if they haven't voted in 2 consecutive voting cycles. All right. So we don't even understand a lot of these moves that are being made. Republicans understand this. A lot of us don't even understand it. We're the targets. A lot of us don't even understand these moves that are being made. Republicans fear the African-American vote more than we value the vote. We don't even understand that we don't understand, many of us. I know y'all understand because you watch me, but a lot of people don't understand that they don't understand. All right. Yeah, Stephen. Stephen said, logically speaking, if the black vote meant nothing, then why are certain entities of the government investing so much time into keeping black people from voting? Right. You're correct. That's what I was saying. We don't understand this. You go study these voter suppression laws. You go study these tactics that they're implementing. And what happened was in 2012, when President Barack Obama ran for the second term, the percentage of African Americans voting who actually voted, 66.6%. It was a record. It was a record percentage in the turnout of African Americans. This scared Republicans to death. I do a presentation where I talk about 6 principles of political self-defense. And some of you have heard me talk about political self-defense and understanding how to protect gains that were made and assess gains that were made while pushing an agenda, and how to defend against attacks coming towards you, how to perceive these attacks. Because a lot of this stuff, we don't even see the attack coming towards us. Okay, we're busy watching Love and Hip Hop and Real Housewives of Atlanta. Shout out to Kenya Moore. You know, I went to school with Kenya, went to high school with Kenya. But we're distracted with all this other stuff and not paying attention to stuff that like really, really matters. So 2013 Shelby County versus Holder happened. This is initiated by Republicans. Then it guts Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. So now you have all these voter suppression tactics taking place and all these voter ID laws taking place, which along with the Russian intervention and Russians targeting African Americans with a disinformation campaign. And they're targeting us right now with a disinformation campaign as well. And if you want to get information on that disinformation campaign, read volume 1 of the Mueller report, because volume 1 dealt with Russian intervention. Read volume 1 of the Mueller report, especially pages 22 through 40. Pages 22 through 40. And they talk about how the Russians were setting up fake websites, fake Facebook profiles, fake Facebook groups, organizing different events, all different types of things like this, a total disinformation campaign, okay, to depress African-American turnout, turn African Americans against Hillary Clinton, okay, and depress the African American turnout. They're going to do the same thing again, but we can't let that happen this time. Okay, we can't let that happen this time. Also, I encourage people to read the document from whitehouse.gov, Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration. Every city I lecture in, I ask people who's heard of this, and like 99.9% of people never heard of it before, even less have actually read it. And this was up, it was last updated October 14, 2016, but this was up before then, probably going back to 2014. I know it was up in 2015, but even before then it was up. So this breaks down by category and shows you how the policies from the Obama administration directly, positively impacted the African American community. And these were policies that were at risk in 2016, okay, with the election. And a lot of people didn't know what was at stake. A lot of people didn't know these policies existed. A lot of people didn't know that these policies were in jeopardy, and they are being severely attacked, or if not reversed, severely weakened, what have you. Okay, so check this out also. We'll post that here, and that's at whitehouse.gov. So Trump hasn't taken it down yet. Okay, so let's go back to this here from Asala. Okay, so once again, this the 2020 annual theme for African American History Month is African Americans and the vote. African Americans and the vote. There's an annual theme each year. The theme for 2019 was Black migrations. Black migrations, basically 1619 to 2019, and it wasn't just looking at the forced migration of the transatlantic slave trade, but it was looking at other migrations like the Black migration, the Great Migration of 1915 to 1970. We had about 6 million African Americans migrating from the South up north and out west. Okay, so through voting rights campaigns and legal lawsuits from the turn of the 20th century to the mid 1960s, African Americans made their voices heard as to the importance of the vote. Indeed, the fight for Black voting rights continues in the courts today. Indeed, the fight for Black voting rights continues in the courts today. The theme of the vote should also include the rise of Black elected and appointed officials at the local and national levels, campaigns for equal rights legislation, as well as the role of African Americans in traditional and alternative political parties. So it's not just the Democratic Party, okay? The role of African Americans in traditional and alternative political parties. All right, so that is a overview of the 2020 theme for African American History Month. So when you have these celebrations that take place during February, but also this gives focus for the entire year. You're going to have celebrations, people give speeches, things like that, that deal with different aspects of this actual theme and make it relevant for today. Okay, because part of the purpose of African American History Month is to understand the accomplishments and achievements of African Americans, but also to make all of this history relevant for today and to plan for the future. So it's not just, so a lot of people just look at Black History Month as the first Negro to do this, the first Negro to do that. That's only one aspect of it. Okay, yes, we deal with accomplishments and achievements, but also we don't just deal with African American history, we deal with African history in general. We deal with African people on the continent of Africa. We deal with African people throughout the diaspora because we're all connected. We're all one people, even though we may have different colonizers, we may speak different languages, we may have adopted different religions, etc. We're still all African people, regardless of where we are. So we have to develop that Pan-African mindset. Okay. Let's see who we have here. Okay, Cynthia. How you doing, Cynthia? Okay, Stephan. All right. And then also we have, let me see. We have it here. We have a Facebook fundraiser going on for a few days. If you want to donate through the Facebook fundraiser, that's fine as well. That's for the African History Network. And let me post a link here for that as well. Okay. You can either do it through, if you want to donate through PayPal or Cash App, you can do that. Or if you want to do it through the Facebook fundraiser, that's fine also. Okay. All right. Let me go back here. All right, so African-American business owners, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, and we'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network and get you up and running today as well. A lot of people in 2020 want to get their credit in order, and rrrcreditservices.com can help you with this. RRR Credit Services and Chandranette Middleton. Are you tired of having poor credit? Are you tired of paying those high double-digit interest rates? Would you like to purchase your dream home one day? If the answer is yes to any of these questions, then RRR Credit Services is your answer. Okay, they are your one-stop when it comes to credit education and repair. They equip you by providing solutions which will enable you to rebuild your financial future. The affordable cost to become a client is just $30 for the first month. Take the first step by giving them a call, 1-800-607-1989, 1-800-607-1989 for a free credit consultation. Don't delay. Let them know you found out about this from the African History Network, and it will either be Chandra Net or one of her assistants that you speak with. That's rrrcreditservices.com. All right, how you doing, Kim? Okay, and we'll post a link here to the African History Network fundraiser on Facebook as well. All right. Okay, guys, look, hey, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization for African American History Month, email me at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Okay, and we can make that happen. I got 2 calls today from people in Detroit. They want me to speak, one church, and then also NAACP chapter in suburb of Detroit as well. So if you want me to speak, make that happen. If you want me to speak for Dr. King Day, it doesn't look like I'm speaking anywhere for Dr. King Day, because I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. If you saw my show Sunday night, I talked about this, right? I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. I don't deal with the Dr. King to make white people feel comfortable with the oppression of African Americans. That's not the Dr. King I deal with. I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King that a lot of people don't know about. All right. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We broadcast right here on Facebook Live. I'm in the studios at 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF in Detroit, when I do that show. But we broadcast on Facebook Live, so you can go back and watch this past Sunday's show. And then also we put them on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. All right, look, I have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with, it's based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Also, we have a new bundle pack, DVD bundle pack for African American History Month. It's a 15 DVD bundle pack, and then I added a additional one, so it's 16 DVDs, because the additional one I added is Breaking the Chains while we celebrate African American History Month, and it deals with the origins of Black History Month as well. Okay, so that is it's 16 DVD bundle pack. This is like a $250 value on sale, $100. Okay, so we just posted the link here, and it's right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, guys, look, we got to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.